Welcome back. Time to mix it up on the day's other headlines. Plenty of them. Key votes on Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and the unveiling at West Point of the Obama Doctrine. We start with what could be the first steps toward ending Don't Ask, Don't Tell, though. Both the Senate Armed Services Committee and the House expected to vote maybe today on whether to repeal the Clinton-era policy about gays in the military. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says she thinks the votes are there for the repeal to pass. Republicans vowing to vote against it. If the repeal does pass, Congress and the Pentagon have agreed to delay changes until after the military completes a study on how it will affect troops. Here to mix it up is our panel, Democratic strategist Chris Kafinas and political editor for the Washington Examiner, Chris Stirewalt. Chris Stirewalt, it's a Chris and Chris day, so I'm going to use full names. So Chris Stirewalt, I'll begin with you. Here's a dirty little secret, although I don't think it's dirty or little. As we sit here talking today, there are gay people in the military. Of course. I'm not breaking news by saying that. And so when they say they're going to study the impact of gay people in the military, does that strike you as absurd as it strikes me? There are gay people in the military.
Right, they're going to watch Troy again and see how it went for those guys. What they're studying, obviously, is not having gay people in the military, but having openly gay people in the military, and what happens to troop morale and logistics when you have people who are out and living proudly as gay people, as opposed to what the law now requires, which is for them to be closeted.
Yeah. Do you think that, Chris Kafinas, do you think that someplace like Israel is instructive, where they legalize openly gay soldiers in the military the same year we passed Don't Ask, Don't Tell?
Well, I think
it's
okay
for them, and they certainly they use their military a lot more actively than we do in many cases. I shouldn't actually say that, but they use their military as actively as we do in many cases, although not as far afield.
Well, it's not the only example. I mean, there are other Western powers that have already integrated, if you will, and have open gays serving in the military. It hasn't had a deleterious effect on the performance of the various branches. It seems to me that this is a lot of dancing around what I think is going to be the inevitable, and to repeal it with an asterisk, and the asterisk being we're going to study it and then we're going to implement it. I mean, I think is enough. You know, it's the 21st century. Let's move on. This is not going to have a negative impact on our military. Gays have served in the military for decades, if not centuries. This is an issue that does not need to be discussed the way it does, but it is what it is.
Well, I think
breaking news. I'm going to move on, just because this one's going to be with us for months. But again, my secret of the day: there already are gay people in the military. Next, the Obama Doctrine. President himself unveiling his new national security policy, warning against the U.S. overextending its power to a direct rebuttal, basically, of the Bush-era doctrine of preemptive war. The strategy reframes the terrorist threat, saying, quote, "This is not a global war against a tactic, being terrorism, or a religion, Islam. We are at war with a specific network, Al-Qaeda and its terrorist affiliates."
Nor do we describe our enemy as jihadists or Islamists, because jihad is a holy struggle, a legitimate tenet of Islam, meaning to purify oneself or one's community. And there is nothing holy or legitimate or Islamic about murdering innocent men, women, and children.
Well, for the first time, the strategy also makes stopping homegrown extremists who were radicalized on U.S. soil a key part of the security policy. We're familiar with the recent events. Chris Stirewalt, I'll begin with you once again. Sounds like certainly an interesting debate, but at the end of the day, for as much as he says he'd like to protect us here and invest here, we are currently spending $6 billion a month in Afghanistan and spending billions of dollars there effectively, and spending pennies by comparison here. If that is his doctrine, how long do you think the American people have to wait to see it actually implemented?
Well, look, whatever President Bush called his doctrine, whatever President Obama calls his doctrine, the situation for the people of the United States right now is that we have 100,000 men and women under arms in Afghanistan, fighting a war under very restrictive terms, fighting a war that is hugely expensive and is, as a matter of fact, the focus of our foreign policy. So it's that war. It's not whether we use a word jihad or how PC can we be as we describe anti-bar combat approach. The point is we have 100,000 people fighting in Afghanistan, dying in Afghanistan. That's what we're doing. And when the whole rest of the world looks at us, they don't look to see what kind of buzzwords we use in the flyer. They know that we are seriously bogged down in a huge conflict in Central Asia. So the rest of it is all sort of just some stuff that people say.
Yeah, Chris Kofinas, I agree with Chris Stirewalt. Are we basically blowing hot air against the obvious elephant in the room, which is we're eyeballs deep in Afghanistan for reasons people aren't quite clear as to why we're there? That's where the money is, that's where the people are, and that may not be where the problem is.
Well, I don't see these as separate. I mean, I see these as intertwined. I mean, the philosophical break that President Obama outlined in his national security strategy from President Bush is significant. You're walking away from a preemptive unilateral posture. You know, the notion of engaging your allies versus going alone. That, I think, as well as the posture towards terrorism, is significant, and it goes right to the heart about how you're going to deal with current hotspots like Afghanistan. There's no question about it that Afghanistan probably is the most serious, foreign policy challenge that President Obama faces, and North Korea, I would say, is fast approaching potentially a second. But how you approach these issues, national security-wise, is reflective of your philosophy, and I think that is what's so significant with President Obama and what he articulated today. It is a significant break from the past.
The words are the actions are not. Go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say I didn't expect him to return to the Bush doctrine. I don't think this is a surprise to anybody.
Well, I mean, and the question the question becomes which one is more successful. And I think the action is going to be reflected in what he's doing. And you're already, I think, seeing that in terms of the scaling down in Iraq, the approach that we're taking in terms of North Korea, which is a multi-layered, multifaceted approach in trying to recruit a number of countries to put pressure on the North Koreans. And the same thing with Afghanistan. Afghanistan, I think, is the biggest challenge. I don't have the easy answers. I'm not sure anyone does. But that is the current pickle that the president, I think, has to kind of solve.
Yeah, but the current answer is that our soldiers are their mission in Afghanistan is to try not to get killed, and you ask them why they're there or why people want to kill them, and they say it's because we're in Afghanistan and we're $6 billion a month for that problem. That's just stupid. Anyway, I'm not we'll talk to you guys later.